Today, I want to show you some tips, tricks, hacks, workflow improvements, whatever you want to call them, for dealing with send effects in Logic. I'm going to show you how I address some of the shortcomings in the app when it comes to doing this. And I love Logic, but I have to say they have made this process a little cumbersome. I also want to maybe give you some new ways to think about send effects, because I think while searching for a solution for how Logic handles this, I think I stumbled onto a solution that may work for every DAW and might be the way I approach send effects in general moving forward. So let me show you the issues I'm having with Logic and how I combat them. Right here in this song, I have a lead vocal stem with a lead vocal track in it, and I have a reverb. And as you can see, this reverb's on bus 1. It's over here. Bus 1, it's going to 39 is the track stack input. Okay, so that makes sense. Now, even to do this, that's not always the easiest thing. Suppose I go like this and I add another one. Let's say I want to add some delay. And I go like this. Now you can see what happened. It made a new auxiliary track to the right send input, but it put it to the stereo out. Not only that, it's not in this track stack if you look up here. Well, the reason it's not in the track stack is because it's actually not a track. So let's make it a track. And we do that by right-clicking and choosing Create Track or Control-T. So when I do this, in this particular case, it created the track and it put it in the track stack. And look, it changed by putting it into the track stack. Normally, if you drag tracks into a track stack, it will change its output so that it goes into the track stack. So that makes sense. However, this is a very simple arrangement with only one track stack, and the only tracks are already in the track stack. So if this were a more complex arrangement, it doesn't always do that. It may add it to the track stack without going to the right input or output, and you need to change that yourself. Since it worked in this case, let's not dwell on that. But as you can see, this starts to get a little tedious. You have to go like that, and then go like that, and then, as I said, it is adding them to the track stack right now, so that's not the worst. So let's just call this a distortion. I don't know, I'm just making this up for you guys. So now we have these, and we can send a different amount to each one. If you'll notice, I didn't even put effects on these yet. I can do that and then come back. So now it actually looks a little bit more like what this would appear like in an actual session. So you have your lead vocal here, you're sending different amounts of it to these different channels where there's an effect, and then you use sending different amounts and changing the fader levels, you get a balance that you're happy with. And what's great is it's all going to this track stack, and when you mute that, everything will be muted. You won't be hearing the reverb coming through into the stereo bus. It's all within this lead vocal stem. Everyone calls these things different. Track stack, stems. I like to call it stems. Bus, you could even just call it a bus. But the point is, it's all self-contained. It's in there. Now, we're at this point. Now let me just show you. There's another way to add these aux tracks. That's what these tracks are called. And what we can do is we can go here and we can say create new auxiliary channel strip. So let's do that by doing Control-N. I'm going to do 3 of them, figure out what we're doing. Now look, their inputs are actually the physical inputs, audio inputs. We want them to be buses. So we've already used 1, 2, and 3 here. So we want this one to start at 4. Now if you hold down Option and you go to bus 4, it will make these consecutive. That is really handy if you're doing a lot of it. Maybe if you're starting a mix template, you might just have, I don't know, 50 auxiliary tracks and do this consecutively, and then just have them waiting all the way to the right in your mixer, and then just start using them as needed. They're already set up, they're already the bus number, so it might be easier, you know, if you're on a different track. Let's just say we have let's say we have another audio track. Suppose we want to send this one to bus 4. We would just go here and do that, and then that would be using that one. But we still have that same problem. How do we get these to be in this lead vocal stem if we want to? Well, we have to do this again, create track. And now what you will see is, because I don't know if I was on the lead vocal stem or not, I can check the tape, But for whatever reason, look, it just has these busts to the stereo outs. If I go over here, I can probably drag them into this stack. And it does change the output to the input of our stem. So again, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's a lot of steps. I think Pro Tools has a way where you can just like type in, just say, I want this, I want an aux track on this bus, and I want it to be here, and I want the inputs of it to be this, and the outputs to be that, and you just say, you could do them all just by typing. That looks very enticing compared to this. But today, I'm going to show you something completely different. Okay, so now let's actually delete these tracks. I don't want them here, because this is the point of what I wanted to show you. Suppose you have a lead vocal here. This is really where the video should have started, but I wanted to just give you a little of that preliminary stuff so you see what we're trying to avoid doing. So suppose you have these 3 effects here and your vocals sounding good, but then you decide, I want a longer delay. I want to add a 16th note delay, 8th note delay, ping pong delay. So we could do this again. We can go to, that was, I think, left over from before, but like that shouldn't have been there. We would have to go here, and then it puts it here. But as you can see, it doesn't put it in the track stack, and it doesn't put it, well, actually, we don't even know if it put it in the track stack because it's not a track yet, but we can see it didn't give it the output that we want, which is we want it to go into this lead vocal stem, right? We actually want it to go all the way down into bus 39, which you can't see here. So we want to change that to 39. We want this to be in the track stack. Okay, we can go like this, create track, and okay, this is exactly what I'm talking about. You see, it put it in the track stack. It's physically in the track stack, but it has the wrong output. So we would have to change that back to 39. So I think you're starting to understand what I think the actual problem is. So here is the solution that I am very happy with. We need one more. So instead of creating a new one and going through all that again, I just take this track and I hit Command D. And it makes another one, and it's going to the right place. It's already made it a track, and it's already in here. So let's name this delay. Should be consistent with the capitalization, but whatever. And so now we have this. Now the thing is, it's on being sent by bus 3, and so is this one. But you know what? That would normally be a really big problem, but it's actually not a problem because we're just dealing with one lead vocal. So we can send it here, and if it's too loud on this one, we'll just pull that down. If it's not loud enough on this one, we'll pull it up. Let's do it again. If we decide we want yet another one, Command D, and we make another one, and this one we'll change it to another reverb. Or if you're setting up your template, what you can maybe do is have 6 different reverbs and 4 different delays and all these other parallel effects, and then just turn them on and off as you need them. And you can try different things. Let's try a plate reverb. Let's try this one. You know, you have all your favorites there. That's not that unusual to do, but normally what I see people doing is they'll put maybe 4 reverbs in a row over here and then have them muted out and then switch between them here, which works great. But my point is, we can do all this with just this one send here, this one send 3. If it's a lead vocal, a sax solo, a guitar solo, anything where it's just one thing, and you could probably do it with a few things, but it just might, you have to weigh, am I now making it more complicated or less complicated? And once it becomes more complicated, well, then maybe the previously mentioned scenarios are what you want to use. So while I was coming up with this, while I was actually making this video, what I started to think was, well, wait a minute, let's get rid of all of these. Yeah, delete anyway. I don't care. I don't want them. Okay, we have one reverb here, right? These are not important, right? Because we're not using them anymore. Then I started thinking, why wouldn't we just do all of them like this? Now, this has nothing to do with Logic's workflow. This is something you could do in Pro Tools, Cubase, anything. Instead of having 6, 7, 8 sends on each track, why not just have like one and then change the effects here? And then if you need to, if it's really necessary, add a gain plugin. so you can change the amount that's going to this effect from here. Suppose you have something like a reverb where you really just want a little of it. So instead of changing the send level, you'd keep the send level stationary, static, and you would use these gain plugins to change how far you're driving these. And that's only if the fader, just moving the fader, doesn't give you the results you want. Sometimes you like to have your faders all in this area for the best resolution, and then maybe you want to use the gain to get the sound you're looking for, because you'll drive the effect based on how much gain you're putting into it. So you do need to have a little bit of control about how much gain is going into the effect. So I would definitely use something like a gain control. If you like uncluttered mixes, this might be something to consider. So we'll go here, we'll put distortion on this one. You would probably want to have that gain plugin, no problem. We'll put that in front of this. And now you just have this one send feeding all of these, and then you use the faders here to control how much you want of each one. And of course you can, the same way you might want to automate the send, you would just automate the gain level on the track. So I think this is how I'm going to start setting up many of these, because in a way, think about it, you have your lead vocal and you have maybe so many things you want to try, right? Reverbs and delays and parallel compression and parallel distortion and whatever, modulation, and then different variations of all of those. In a way, isn't it easier to just have everything on one send and then control everything from the gains and the faders? I think moving forward, that's something I am going to experiment with. Let me know if you think that's a good idea and if you see any potential pitfalls with this workflow. And again, before you say this is ridiculous, remember, we're talking about things where you're just dealing with one track. Guitar solo, sax solo, lead vocal. I think anytime you see more than 3 sends on a track, you might want to think, could I be doing this with one send and just having different levels for the aux tracks? Okay, so the main takeaway is just that we were going to duplicate a track in order to quickly create another aux send. So I hope that helped. More tips and tricks on the way.